What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with your DFS preview for this week's WGC HSBC Champions, the final leg of the Asian swing headed to China. If you're watching on the video, no surprise here. This is probably the last video. This or the betting preview will be the last video that I record here before we move. So I'm literally sitting in an empty room right now, or nearly empty. The computer and the camera are basically the only things left. So bear with me over the course of the next couple days. I'll try to get out the DFS preview. I'll try to get out the betting preview, and then it'll probably be pretty quiet from me for the rest of the week as I spend that time moving, getting the new studio set up, and then we'll see how quickly I can get back up and running. So thanks for the support through this time, and also thanks to the support. I've got a couple winners from last week. So winning a week's subscription to DFSOnDemand.com, which is my website, I've got two winners. Number one is I am Chris Jacks, and the other is Devin Davis, one from the iTunes reviews, the audio reviews, and one from commenting here on YouTube. So we'll do the same thing as usual. If you want to be entered in a draw to win a weekly subscription to DFS On Demand and use all of the tools that you're seeing me use, join our Slack channel, all that good stuff. The response has been pretty good to the people who have won. They seem to enjoy it. There's two ways to do it. So make sure that you have already subscribed to this channel, like the video, and comment below with which golfer under $8,500 that you are most excited to play this week. Or if you're on the audio podcast, especially on iTunes, go in there, give a 5-star review, say something nice about the show, leave me your Twitter handle, and that will also enter you, and you'll have like a 30 times better chance of winning if you go the audio route. All right, I think that's it. Let's get into the picks for this week. All right, the salaries are finally released. Felt like it took forever today. They came out, I don't know, 15 minutes ago. So I quickly ran and updated the tools. I was prepared to go. So let's jump into this. We have 5 golfers over $10,000, led by Rory McIlroy at $11,700, Hideki at $11,100, Xander, your defending champion, at $10,800, sneaky little Justin Rose at $10,500, and Paul Casey at an even $10,000. First things first, when you're looking over trying to decide which one of these golfers you might want to play, Rory is the odds-on favorite. He's 6-1 to win this golf tournament. He is obviously the most expensive, but there's really, I don't know how you could make a case for anyone else being the best guy out of this range, and they're all very good. But if you can afford to get up to $11,700, I think you have to do it to go with Rory. You can see my projection model has him as the highest projected golfer by in the field by 12 points or 13 points, and out of anybody in this range, probably closer to 23 points. His ceiling is higher than anybody. I have him projected with a 121 point ceiling, 109 point median projection. Really quickly, we'll obviously talk about him in a second, but Adam Scott at $9,300 is actually my second highest projected golfer on this slate. So to see him priced at like the 12th or 13th most expensive golfer is kind of crazy. So we'll talk about that in a second. But if you're looking for one of these guys over $10,000, Rory seems to fit the bill here. He's coming off a 3rd place finish last week at the Zozo. He's coming off his PGA Tour Player of the Year award, and quite frankly, he had a really bad opening round. He shot a 72 at the Zozo, goes 65, 63, 67. After that, he had the best weekend score, the best final 3 rounds. Outside of that really kind of crappy opening round, he played the best out of everybody in the field. He comes to a place now where, actually, I could add in the tournament history here. I forgot to do that. So watch. This is going to be the magic of video editing. You're going to see course history in 1 second. And there you go. There is course history. So the point that I was trying to make is Rory, who it doesn't really display all that well because it's further than 5 years back, but he's basically just piled up top fives and top tens here. It's been unbelievable. So if you're going to spend up for 11-7, really hard to find anybody that you'd really want to consider outside of Rory. Hideki, coming off a second and a third at the Zozo and the CJ, he is a past champion here, although his course history, his tournament history is actually much more volatile. He's withdrawn from this event twice, I believe both times with an injury. Outside of the win, he hasn't finished inside the top 30 in the other years that he's even finished this event. So it's been really, really weird, but he's playing super well at the moment, and he does have past champion status. Xander, I think, and I kind of mentioned this on a different betting show that I did. You're paying a lot for that defending champion price for Xander Schauffele. He's 10,800. He's one of the top favorites in the betting market, which usually drives the DraftKings salary. And unfortunately, this is he has the shortest odds this week that he's had at any WGC event in his career. And it makes sense because he's playing really well right now. He's obviously a class player as he's grown into this, and he is your defending champion, but you're really paying for that defending champion status. I think Xander can win in almost any single field, so I'd rather wait until he's back, under 10,000, 25-1 to win a golf tournament, because he can win anywhere. Doesn't necessarily have to win here. I don't think he's that type of course, player. Now, really, if you're not going to start your lineups up here in the 10Ks, if you want to start in the mid-9s and go on a balanced approach, I think this week is really lending itself to that. So right here at 9,500, Sung Jae Im, who we talk about quite a bit, piles up another third-place finish. You can just look back to the BMW Championship and the results that he's had. 11th at the BMW, 19th at the Tour Championship, 19th at the Greenbrier, 2nd at the Sanderson Farms. Then he had a 49th, a 39th, and a third place finish in that gap between, the Houston Open, the Shriners. He actually went over to Korea and he won on the Korean Tour. First time he's going to tee it up here at this WGC event. He's $9,500. He does everything that you would expect from a guy here, and he's priced as like the 10th or 12th most expensive golfer in the field. It's actually kind of crazy. So if you wanted to kind of start with Sung Jae, if you wanted to kind of start with Adam Scott, who are two of my favorite plays in this area, I couldn't blame you for that. And then you go to Billy Horschel, who's someone that to me is quietly flying under the radar just a bit here. He's having a very good stretch of golf. Dating back to the WGC FedEx, he's got 4 top 10s in his last 7 starts. He's been playing a lot on the European Tour, so that's kind of where I'm getting these numbers from. He finished in 6th last week at the Zozo Championship, and he only has 1 start here in China in the last 4 years, but it was last year for an 11th place finish. Billy Horschel, one of these guys that I really want to get in the midst of a hot streak. Some guys can get really streaky and get really hot. Horschel's one of them. Who else am I thinking of? Snedeker's one of them. Duffner at times has been one of them, where you want to get them in the midst of that hot run, because they'll go 4 straight weeks getting scorching hot like Billy Horschel did in the FedEx Cup playoffs one year, and then they'll have 6 bad weeks in a row and you can forget about them. But I think we're in the midst of one of those good streaks for Billy Horschel right now. So the fact that he's only priced at $8,900 is feels like a bit of a slam dunk, to be quite frank. And then really the guy that, we play Corey Connors every single week. $8,200, 6th place at the Zozo, 12th at the CJ, 13th at the, what would that have been, Safeway, 7th back at the BMW Championship. The guy puts himself into contention quite a bit. I'm actually going to flip over to his player profile, and if you have not seen the update, I've got an updated player profile. A couple just small tweaks here. But basically what's new about this tool, if you're watching on the video version, is a couple of things. It now includes events that we don't have shot link data on. So before, because these are so heavily weighted, or this is displays strokes gained data, before I wasn't showing the events that did not have strokes gained data. That is no longer the case. So now you have those events in there as well. It's a little bit more stable. It's a little bit easier to read with the color coding over here. And I've got tournament averages in terms of strokes gained on the left here. So it's a pretty slick little tool. And if you look at Corey Connors, I mean, just visually looking at it, like it's a ton of green, right? I mean, the guy, especially tee to green, gains a bunch of strokes every single week. We know the putter is going to let him down. We know his short game is not great, and it's very easy to see in this new updated tool. But I mean, look at that. Look at that on approaches. So in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 events that we actually have strokes gained data on, gains on approaches in every single one. Hasn't had 2 weeks in going back to at least the last year's Masters. He hasn't had 2 weeks in a row where he's lost on approaches. So he's usually a pretty consistent player there, very consistent off the tee, in the midst of a really good stretch right now. Just look at, like, this is why I play him. So what I like about this tool is you can see the DraftKings finishes. So, I mean, he is basically scoring you 85 to 95 DraftKings points almost every week dating back to like July 4th. There's been 3 times that he's not scored you at least 74 DraftKings points in that span. Obviously, his ceiling is a little bit capped, but he's always kind of priced down here in this range where he's very easy to get into a lineup. He's if he catches fire a little bit, and plays hot for a week, you're gonna have a chance to win the actual golf tournament with him. I'll run through a couple of long shots here before I jump over to the key stats for this week, because I'm excited to get back to that tool since we haven't had it a lot recently. So really quickly, down here at $7,200, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, but I believe it's Andre Pavan, I believe is how he pronounces it, Pavan. Primarily, almost distinctly a European Tour player, and you can see that from like the recent finishes here, because he doesn't have much outside, and he doesn't have anything here on the PGA Tour, excuse me. But he's got 3 straight top 12s on the European Tour. He has 6 top 15 finishes over his last 7 starts, and he's certainly no scrub. He's number 66 player in the world. Won the BMW International this past season on the European Tour. He's got 1 start here, 22nd place finish last year at the WGC HSBC here in China. So, he's someone at 7,200 that really strong player across the world, has had recent success. I think he can find himself in a pretty good spot. And then my buddy, I'm going to butcher all these names down here, but Xinjun Zhang, 6,900. Zhang, we have not seen him in a couple of weeks, but he had a really great start to the PGA Tour season. Remember, this is the guy who was the regular season points leader on the Korn Ferry Tour last year. So he's someone that knows how to get around a course. He had, 7 top 10s last year. He had 2 wins, a second, 2 thirds, all on that Korn Ferry Tour, and had a really good start to his PGA Tour season now that he has his card full time. So he's got you can see it here, missed the cut at the Greenbrier. And then he made the cut at the Sanderson Farms. Then he's got a really good stretch where he went 7th at the Safeway, 16th at the Shriners, and 4th at the Houston Open, which is the last time we've seen him. Now, what's interesting about Zhang being a Chinese player, he has played this event quite a bit because the Chinese tour gets exemptions into this event every single year. So he's played here a whole bunch. It's been a little bit of a mixed bag for him. So the last 4 years, he's got a 21st is his best finish. He has a couple of 44, 46, 50th place finishes. But at least this is now the time of his career where he's playing the best. He's at the best stage of his career, and he has a lot of experience around this course. So he's probably someone that I don't think I want to go much lower than this. I don't think I want to go much deeper than $6,900. But Zhang right there, 69, could be the guy that kind of rounds out my lineups down there at the bottom. And then we'll flip over to the course key stats here, because again, we've not had these in quite some times, but because I believe it's Sheshen International is how you pronounce this. It's been the host for this event for a long time. We have really good data here. Of course, we don't have shot link data, but remember, my stat model does not necessarily look at the event itself, if that makes sense, which I think is a mistake that a lot of people make, because if you do it that way, literally all you're saying is the players who played best that week are going to do well here, right? It's always like, oh, past winners gained 5 shots putting. Like, yeah, no kidding. They always do every single week. It's not very predictive. But what I do is I say, okay, who's played well here? And then what type of player are they? Does that type of player bomb the ball? Does that type of player gain a lot of strokes off the tee? And then we kind of just make this model around the types of players that we would expect to find success at every single course. So that's what's going on here. So when you look at this event, you can see where you're going to have to be really, really good. I'll start with the most common stats. The two ends of it, off the tee and putting, are both top 10 stats here. Both ranked 7th out of the 50 PGA Tour events that we get, or courses that we get every year. You'll notice the one that really stands out to me is driving accuracy, coming in 42nd. It is almost a negative correlator, believe it or not. So what that says is you don't really have to be accurate here. In past years, the rough has not been that penal, or the guys that are accurate drivers are not necessarily getting a big advantage here. So you might just want to take bombers, which driving distance is 15th out of 50 compared to driving accuracy being 42nd out of 50 in terms of importance. So really, really interesting stuff here. So let's go through some of these. Let's go through strokes gained off the tee, which is the most common stat that is highly valuable. And some of the other ones are a little bit noisy. So if you just look at all the stats in general, like approaches from 150 to 175 is technically the most important stat. That could be a little bit noisy. I don't know if I believe that. Par 4 birdie or better is a number 2 stat here. Putting from 7 feet, like how specific is that? That's probably not a good one to look at. So I like to just stick with our strokes gained stats over here that we have. So here we go. So when you look at strokes gained off the tee, pretty much no surprise that Rory laps the field here. I mean, he's gaining 1.2 strokes per round. Next closest guy is Bubba Watson at 0.75. So what is that? A half a stroke better, which is basically the gap between Rory and Bubba is the same gap between Bubba and Keegan Bradley, who's like 20th on this list. Like, Rory's absolutely lapping the field. And as you can see, in all of these most common stats, Rory leads in, it looks like he leads in strokes gained, tee to green, strokes gained total, birdie or better, scoring average, and driving distance. Like, the guy is unbelievable. So we've got that going. He's got that going for him. A little bit of value here. So Bubba is here at $6,800. He is a past champion. I am never interested in Bubba. I'm like a 2 out of 10 interested in him this week, when most weeks I'm like a negative 1,000. So very, very little interest in Bubba. But I think if you're ever going to play him, now might be the time. Then Corey Connors is here, Paul Casey is here, and Matt Fitzpatrick round out the top 5 in terms of strokes gained off the tee. If you go to approach, which usually opens up some value for us as well, this is where Adam Scott becomes interesting, and I think this is where a lot of that really high projection that I have on Adam Scott comes in, where he's the second best player in the field in strokes gained approach. He's one of the best players in tee to green, and birdie or better, in scoring average, and strokes gained total, and all of these other stats that are popping up. Adam Scott is right up there. Hideki's up there too, but Adam Scott right up there. But he's $9,300. That to me feels like the biggest misprice just when I look at it. And then also I think a lot of the stats and a lot of the modeling that I've done this week also would dictate that Adam Scott is a pretty big misprice. Okay. So that top 5 for strokes gained approach, Henrik Stenson always going to be here. Adam Scott, Hideki, Jason Kokrak, and Paul Casey again rounds out here. Corey Connors is 6th. And then let's look at driving distance, considering driving accuracy didn't really matter. So driving distance, a lot of the same names here. Rory, 11,700. He leads the way. Then Bubba, Tony Finau, Benny On, Jason Kokrak, Phil Mickelson's up here, and then Xander Schauffele. And let's see if we can find anybody who is, actually, let's go tee to green really quickly here. Tee to green are a lot of the same names that you'd expect to see, right? I mean, it's a stacked field, and all these guys are here. Rory, Hideki, Adam Scott, Paul Casey, Benny On, Corey Connors, Xander. Interesting. So, yeah, I'm going to probably, so to go back to the cheat sheet for a second here, I'm probably going to try to get as much Rory in as I can. If I can't get to Rory, which I think might be difficult when I start building these lineups, to be quite honest with you, I think it might be really hard to get him into lineups. Starting in the 95 range, I think is fine, because I think the biggest discrepancies and the biggest mispricings are in this mid-9 range. Like, even Patrick Reed's not all that bad. He's quietly racking up some decent finishes, played well here last year, has a couple of top 10s here. My model likes him a lot. So, I mean, you could go, I mean, even if you want to start your lineup kind of around Reed, Sung Jae, Adam Scott, Billy Horschel, like some combination of those guys, I think that might be a route that I look to take this week. But it's going to be really scary to kind of fade Rory up at the top. So we'll see. Maybe I can plug in some of those cheap guys down at the bottom. I'm interested in the route that you're going to go. Let me know what you think. Tweet me is at RickRunGood or leave a comment below. I will talk to you guys soon. Good luck this week.